This video is sponsored by War Thunder. More about them later on. I built a base in every biome in my latest Valheim playthrough. It's something I've been meaning to do, but I was worried some of them might end up being kind of useless. However, that wasn't the case. In the end, they all turned out to be pretty nice, each with their unique special vibe as well as practical functional utility. The Meadows was my basic starter base for the early game. The Black Forest is where I settled in and made my main headquarters with everything that a Viking needs. In the swamp, I made a base next to the Bog Witch featuring a couple of Surtling spawners as well as a leech trap and a hanging house. The mountain base was surrounded by tons of silver and wolves, both of which I transported home via a massive staircase going down the mountain. In the plains, I used the sealed tower to make a gigantic lox breeder that produced an even more gigantic lox army. The Mistlands contains a sophisticated sap-sucking sanctuary sprawling stupendously in the mist, and in the Ashlands I made a handsome and efficient Askvin breeder using the sealed fortress tower. It took around 1,000 days to get to this point, and I've been streaming the whole process. It was an epic playthrough and a blast to have some of you along for the ride in the chat giving me tips and suggestions and support. So, if you want to see what 1,000 days of building bases gets you, stick around and check out each biome in all of its glory. The Meadows base is the first one I made in the game, as a temporary place to lay my head. It's nothing too crazy, pretty basic, but it looks nice enough I think. I made a little garden for my carrots of course, as well as a place for my pigs, which I was able to trap in the 1-star variety, and then a very minimal smelting area for a bit of early game copper. The house itself is pretty basic, kinda small, but has enough room for a decent kitchen area and a bit of a workshop space and a whole ton of storage, though I did have to put the fermenter on the table. What are you gonna do? One small thing I can point out is the way I placed the bottom chest slightly further out than the top ones, which I kinda like because it makes it a bit more comfortable to click. So let's just consider that your tip and trick for the day. Oh, plus the fact that you can actually stack these defensive spiked walls. I only recently discovered that you can do this, and maybe I'm an idiot and everyone else already knew, but it blew my mind when I found out, considering it was always a hassle using these things, because whenever I would flatten terrain to make a base, I would end up with a sort of a pit, and going around, up and down the terrain with defensive walls was always a hassle and looked pretty ugly. However, this way you really get a nice snug Roman fortress sort of vibe, although for some reason you get a nasty glitch where they overlap in the middle, which sucks, but you can get around that if you just turn it around 180 degrees and that fixes the glitch. Anyway, that was the Meadows, nothing too crazy, so let's move on to the meat and potatoes of my playthrough, my main base which I made in the Black Forest. This has been my home for most of the time I spent playing. It has everything I need, like a nice house with a big kitchen, tons of storage and gardens and portal hub and animals and factory, and a thick defensive wall that I can run on top of to oversee and defend my estate. Initially, the wall was made just out of stone, of course, but towards the end I added some Grostine accents and fortifications because they just look so nice. Oh, and besides the wall, there is a moat as well for an added layer of defense, plus for all the goodies that pile up in the moat for some reason. All sorts of things getting there. There was even a troll stuck in the moat for a time, which made me think, maybe this guy could defend me from raids. Maybe I should just fill up the whole thing with moat trolls. But then I got hit by one of them and I changed my mind. Anyway, between the walls and fortifications and the moat, this base is very much sealed up and quite secure. I'm pretty well protected from most attacks, at least for medieval style weaponry. If it were a jet bomber or something like that, then I might be in trouble, but hey, if I want to explore that side of historical combat, I can always fire up War Thunder. War Thunder is the most comprehensive vehicle combat game ever made, and it's available for free right now on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. It lets you command thousands of tanks, planes, helicopters, and ships from 10 major nations, ranging from those vintage biplanes and armored cars to modern fighter jets and crazy battle tanks. Now, as much as I love the health bar in Valheim, I also like that War Thunder has one of the most sophisticated damage models in gaming. Every engine, fuel tank, and crew member can take hits independently. When a shell penetrates, you even get an X-ray view showing you exactly which parts were destroyed. Pretty cool. And if you like the different playstyles, weapons, and armor sets in Valheim, then you might enjoy the fact that War Thunder has a mode for every player, from fast-paced arcades to ultra-realistic simulator battles, plus deep vehicle customization with camouflage and community-made decals. And the cool thing is, for all that complexity, you don't even need a crazy PC setup. Thanks to the Dagor engine, War Thunder runs smoothly and lag-free even on lower-end machines. So, if that sounds good to you, try War Thunder now for free using my links in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players on PC and consoles who haven't played in 6 months will get a massive bonus pack, including multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive Eagle of Valor decorator, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium accounts. But it's available for a limited time only, so grab it while you can. And now, back to the video. I decided to make my main base in the Black Forest for a few reasons. One, because it's still early game, so you get a lot of time to live in it and upgrade it as you go. Two, it's not that dangerous of a biome and there are plenty of valuable resources around. But three, and most importantly, I wanted to build my house next to a Grey Dwarf spawner, so I can build a farm around it, which is also something I wanted to do since my last go-round, and so I did. Inside this structure, there is one of those whispering purple nests, which you can see through the crystal window, and then the Grey Dwarfs spawn in this room adjacent to it, where they are poisoned to death by pufferfish sitting on item stands on the floor. Although before I had pufferfish, I used hanging braziers, which also work but are not as fast and need to be refueled. Anyhow, I scoured my starting island for a good base location that contained one of these spawners, and I ended up choosing this spot, and it was worth it. Because I spend a lot of time around here, this thing gave me tons of resources. I had more eyes and resin than I knew what to do with, I barely ever needed to chop any wood, after a while stone didn't even fit in my chest anymore, and then the trophies and the buke berries and the ancient seeds I just converted into coal in the obliterator that I placed nearby. I kept the dandelions though, chickens love to eat that stuff. This design is inspired by the YouTuber Zerger, who you might notice some other influences from, as he was in my chat quite often and gave me plenty of hints and suggestions. Check out his channel if you haven't. But yeah, that's the Grey Dwarf farm, which for it to work, it had to be within range of my house. And speaking of the house, this is my classic dream house, like the one I made a tutorial about, but with a few modifications, so you can consider this an update to that video if you like. First of all, this one is slightly wider. Normally it's 12 by 12 floor tiles, but this time I made it 12 by 16, which gave me a bit more space, meaning I had room for a bigger sleeping area, a bunch more storage, and 2 portals sitting comfortably inside of the house. However, the biggest change is probably the kitchen, which I completely overhauled since it was rather small previously, especially considering the new additions from the Bogwitch update. Therefore, I made the kitchen bigger to fit the mead kettle on this side, and the food preparation table I placed inside of this hearth, and then there are the 2 ovens at the end, which makes baking all that much faster, and then there are your classic 4 chests on either side, plus an additional 4 chests inside of the floor here, which I added later because I was running out of room in my 8 initial chests. Oh, also there is a door at the end of the kitchen, so you can now exit the house in all 4 directions, so this kitchen is definitely better than the previous one. Besides that, the house is pretty classic. Workstations in the corner, surrounded by chests, dump hole in the middle, basement underneath for all the workstation upgrades, which in this case I placed in their own little rooms behind glass, sort of like in a museum. And here you can see the Galder table, which is lowered inside of the floor in order to reach both the workstations on top in that specific corner, like this. Also in the basement there is this area for spinning flax and some barrels to store it in, a little section for an artisan table, which I don't use that often, so I think the basement is a good spot for it. And then there's a few exits leading outside, where I have a ton of my other classic constructions, like the factory, which I can access quickly from the house and which is quite long. It contains smelters and kilns and black furnaces, which dump their materials in the underground pickup area, like in that one video I saw on YouTube. Hey, wait a minute, that was me. This time though, the tunnel underneath is wider in order to fit a cart if you want to use that while collecting, and you can enter it from either side, and it also connects to the basement of my house for easy access, as well as this other area which I will get to. You know, it's all connected. Then you gotta have yourself a big garden for your crops, of course, which I built over here so I have easy access from my kitchen, and I made it using core wood I gathered from chopping down all the trees that were in this area. It's nice and long and has guides for quick planting, which is also helped by the farming clothes and the scythe, which can be found in the chest at the entrance, and then there is also a forge here for fixing your tools. Stairs on the end of it also make it easy to go around when planting, and that's about it for the garden. Let's see, what's next? Ah yes, the portal hub, of course, which again had to be easy to reach from the house because I go in there a lot and I don't want to be running around for 2 minutes when I get into a death spiral, you know? The hub is pretty big. It's made up of 4 compartments, each containing 16 portals, so that's like 16 times 4 equals, you know what, you do the math, but that's just the regular ones, because in the middle there is a section for all the big stone portals, which I get later on, and of which I have 8, and 6 of them lead to my other bases, represented by the trophies in each of them, as you can see. But I'll get to these later on. For now, let's just admire the Aladdin sort of vibes of these portal casings and the Grostian decorations all around. Okay, enough admiring. So that's the portal hub, and I also had 2 portals inside my house. One of them was for vendors and the powers, and the other one was my temporary unnamed roaming portal, which you'll be familiar with if you saw my portal hub video, and which for later on in the game, once I reached the Ashlands, I converted it into a stone portal which I placed just outside my door over here. And speaking of over here, you can see that to the left I can enter my tree farm, which is surrounded by terrain walls, or at least that was my intention, but I had to add more stone on top to keep the trees trees from falling all over my base. Just outside here, there's a little section adjacent to the tree farm containing chests, a forge to fix the cultivator, and of course a cart to collect all of the wood after a chop session. This is a great way to get wood instead of always looking somewhere for new trees. This is much faster, though. I mostly just use this farm for planting fine wood since I had plenty of regular wood from my grey dwarf trap. Now next to the tree farm on the upper level there is a wolf farm, and I got myself some handsome 2-star good boys and girls which I brought in from the nearby mountains, but more on that later. The wolves are out in the open as you can see, but there's a backup pair inside in case they get attacked by bats or something, although there's not much that can hurt these guys. I mean, who's a strong pupper? You a strong pupper. Out here is my refinery for ITER production, surrounded by iron and verdure walls to prevent damage. I can feed the machine through here, and then going up these stairs I can add the soft tissue. And since I'm up here anyway, I might as well show you the troll cave, which was nearby, and I decided to include it inside my base rather than just have it lingering on the outskirts of my walls. I thought it would make a nice little chill out area, so I made a kind of like a park thingy around it. Oh, and people kept telling me in the chat I can put chickens in there so they can't get attacked, and I tried for a while. There's still some chickens in there, but eventually I gave up on the system and I just made some more traditional chicken breeders right over here. I made 2 since each only produces a maximum of 8 eggs at a time, and then there is this central area where I can go inside and feed my chicks with the dandelions of all the dead grey dwarf brutes that my pufferfish poisoned in my grey dwarf farm. It's important to recycle. Just outside here, of course, you can see some honeybees for my honey needs, and then if we go back all the way over here, hold up, this place is big. Right here next to the factory, this is where I eventually built a vineyard for my vine berries, and I made it pretty tall to give them plenty of room to grow, although they haven't really got that high up yet. Anyway, over here this area was kind of barren, so I made a little archery range once the call to arms update dropped. And then just here is a classic sundial for checking the time before I head out. Check out the tutorial for the sundial if you haven't. And let's see, I think that's about it, or am I missing something? What am I missing? Yes! The harbor. Back here I made a big harbor area where I have room for 2 boats, a big one and a really big one, and they are at the appropriate level as to be able to collect everything from the ship's storage while you're sitting on land, so you can haul it encumbered wherever you need it. I was considering filling this entire space from one end to the other with docks for different sized ships, but I didn't. It seems like a bit much for just one Viking. Anyway, of course the most striking feature in this area is probably that thing over there. Now, I always liked the idea of a lighthouse in Valheim, like something that you can see from a distance and that guides you when sailing home. The problem was that by the time it started rendering, the rest of the base would also render, making it kind of pointless. But in this case, the location of my base had a few small islands just off the shore nearby, and it seemed like a perfect spot to make a lighthouse which would be visible much earlier than the rest of the base, as well as a big old bridge leading up to it, and it all turned out pretty nice, I think. There are a bunch of lights lighting the lighthouse, like these torches in the corners and circling trophies on the sides, and of course the bonfire on top, which I can feed by going inside and running up these spiral staircase like this. And that is about it for my main base. Boy, that took a lot longer than I thought, and I still have so much more to go. But I guess I should have expected it. This base is truly huge. I could have spent a few more weeks just working on this thing and decorating it, making it nicer, adding extra stuff, and maybe I would have done it, but the lag was starting to become a problem. I mean, there's like 20,000 instances in this one area alone, and I feared adding many more would start melting my GPU, so I stopped here, and I will also stop now so we can move on to the next base, which normally should be the one in the swamp. But first, let's just go to the mountain base, because if I exit through here, you'll see there is this nice long road leading me right up to it. Now, as I said, I try to make each base also have a practical purpose, not just build them for the sake of it and then never actually use them for anything. Problem is, I wasn't really sure what I needed a mountain base for. Taming wolves, perhaps, but you know, a hole in the ground is not that much of a base now, is it? However, I was exploring this mountain area, which is somewhat close to my home, and to my delight, I discovered it was absolutely full of silver. Like 8 silver veins in this one little area, almost 2 cartfuls, enough to satisfy the bloodlust of any Viking. However, I really wasn't looking forward to the 20 trips or so that it would have taken to carry all of this home in my pockets, or the hassle of transporting a bunch of incredibly heavy carts through the Black Forest, even though pushing a cart full of silver down the mountain can be pretty fun. So that's when I started considering the idea of just making a gigantic staircase going down the mountain, as well as a nice straight flat road that goes all the way to my main main base. This way I could transport the silver in style, as well as my tamed wolves who, thanks to the fenced-in roads, would be safer and less susceptible to chasing other creatures. I didn't even know if it was possible to make a staircase going all the way down the mountain. It took some doing, some trial and error, a lot of support, a lot of wood, a lot of time, and a bit of mental illness, but in the end I got it there. There were some boulders in the way, which I had to dig my way through, but I think that makes it look all the more interesting, and because wood doesn't really take weather damage in the mountains, I didn't have to worry about the roof or anything. Once I reached the bottom of the mountain, I just used a hoe to create a nice flat road, which I surrounded by fences to get a nice foresty vibe, and after 7 hours, my medieval highway was complete. With the amount of time it took, it would have probably been faster to just run the silver over bit by bit, but hey, where's the fun in that? Plus, I was really tickled by the idea of having a road connecting 2 of my bases, going basically from here all the way to here. Some nice Viking infrastructure, you know? Oh, and of course, besides the road, my mountain base also had to contain a house, so I built myself a comfy little log cabin in the snow in the center of all that silver so I could easily mine it and bring it all to a central location, and also wait in comfort for my wolves to tame. And speaking of, to catch the wolves, I created this structure over here, which I dubbed the Wolf Pit, TM, because I was dead set on getting 2-star wolves since I've never done that before, but catching them is a dangerous endeavor as they are super fast and deadly, and so I came up with this system to make things a bit easier. Basically, I dug up a big hole and then covered it with floor tiles and this whole structure over here, so that when I find a wolf, I can have it chase me here to this point where I can jump on top of this raised platform so that they can't reach, and then I would just destroy the floor tiles underneath them to drop the beasts inside of their wolf pit. TM. It took a while and I died a bunch of times, but in this manner I was eventually able to catch a 2-star wolf and a regular one, and once they were done taming and started reproducing, after a bit of selective breeding, I had myself a nice little pack of 2-star wolves, which I could guide out the exit and up the ramp and down the road and take them over to their new home, where I completely neglected them and forgot to feed them for the rest of the game. I also left a bunch of wolves in the wolf pit for backup. I try not to think about them too often. But hey, that was my mountain base and road, and those were my first 3 bases. Initially, I wanted to present all 7 of them in one video, but that would have turned out to be 40 minutes or something, and if you know me, then you know I don't mind a long video. Check out my other channel, by the way, but 40 minutes for a Valheim video seems excessive, so I will end it here for now and be back next time with part 2 of the base in every biome, where I will be presenting the swamp, plains, mistlands, and ashlands bases, where I got some pretty crazy stuff coming up, so subscribe to catch that if you haven't already, and hopefully you got some inspiration out of this video, and you know, thanks for watching. Also, thanks again to War Thunder for sponsoring the video. Play War Thunder now for free using my links in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players on PC and consoles who haven't played in 6 months will get a massive bonus pack including multiple premium vehicles, the exclusive Eagle of Valor decorator, 100,000 silver lions, and 7 days of premium account, but it's available for a limited time only, so grab it while you can.